The evening air was thick with an unspoken tension as I settled into our plush living room sofa, the fabric feeling oddly foreign beneath my fingers. Linda paced before me, a glass of merlot in her hand, casting long shadows across the floor as the sun dipped below the horizon. I could tell something was weighing heavily on her mind, the usual light in her eyes replaced by a stormy turbulence I couldn't quite decipher. "Mark, we need to talk," she began, her voice carrying a seriousness that immediately set my nerves on edge. She took a deep breath, pausing as if to gather her strength, then locked eyes with me. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about us, about me, and I've realized I'm not happy with how things are." I felt a knot form in my stomach. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, dreading the continuation of this conversation. Linda took a sip of her wine, her gaze drifting away from mine. "I feel like I've lost a part of myself, Mark. I love you, but there's this need in me to explore, to experience life more fully. And I believe I need to do this by being with other men." Her words hit me like a physical blow, leaving me momentarily breathless. "Linda, are you saying you want to have an affair?" The question hung between us, charged with a mixture of disbelief and pain. "Not an affair, Mark. More like an understanding. I've already met someone, Alexander Reed. He's my boss, and we're planning a weekend getaway together." The casualness with which she spoke of her intentions, as if discussing a mundane trip to the grocery store, left me reeling. "Linda, how can you do this? To us?" I struggled to keep my voice steady, to find the words to express the turmoil inside me. "I thought you might understand, Mark. I believed you'd want me to be happy," she replied, her tone a mixture of defiance and pleading. "By destroying our marriage." I shot back, the hurt evident in my voice. "It doesn't have to be the end of us, Mark. I don't see why this would lead to divorce." "You're overreacting," she said, her words slicing through the last threads of my composure. The conversation spiraled from there, a painful exchange of accusations and justifications. As the night wore on, the gulf between us seemed to widen, an insurmountable chasm filled with Linda's desires and my broken trust. The woman I married, the partner I thought I knew, had become a stranger to me, her request a harbinger of the tumultuous times ahead. The morning after Linda's unsettling request found me in a state of surreal disbelief. The early rays of sunlight did little to warm the cold dread that had settled in my heart. I found Linda in the kitchen, her back to me, humming a tune while she made coffee, a stark contrast to the emotional storm that had engulfed us the night before. "Linda," I began, my voice breaking the false tranquility of the morning. "We need to talk more about what you said last night, about Alex." She turned, her expression one of resigned patience, as if preparing to explain something complex to a child. "Mark, I thought I was clear. I need this. It's not just a whim. Alex, he understands me in a way that's refreshing. It's not just physical. It's about me finding myself again." The casual mention of his name, Alex, twisted the knife deeper. "Your boss, Alexander Reed. He's younger than our son, Linda. How could you even think this is okay? How long has this been going on?" Linda sighed, placing her coffee cup on the counter with a soft clink. "It's not about age, Mark. It's about connection. And it's not been going on. We've only recently discussed the possibility after I opened up about my feelings. You're focusing on the wrong details." "The wrong details? Linda, you're talking about betraying our marriage vows." My voice rose, a mix of anger, confusion, and pain. "How can you be so calm about this?" "Because I've thought long and hard about it, Mark. I'm not making this decision lightly. I believe we can navigate through this. I don't want to lose you, but I don't want to lose myself either," she replied, her voice steady, yet I detected a hint of desperation. "And what about me, Linda? Where do I fit into this new version of your life? Do you expect me to just stand by and watch?" The absurdity of the situation was suffocating, her proposal tearing at the very fabric of our life together. Linda moved closer, reaching out as if to bridge the gap between us with a touch. I was hoping you'd understand that you want me to be happy, that maybe this could even bring us closer in a way. I don't expect you to watch, Mark. I thought you might accept it for me. Accept it. The words echoed mockingly in my mind. How could she expect acceptance of such a betrayal? The woman I shared my life with, who I thought shared my values, now stood before me as if from a parallel world where her request was reasonable, even rational. Linda, this isn't just about you finding yourself. It's about us. And right now, I don't see how there's an us in any of this. My statement hung heavy between us, a stark realization of the chasm that had opened up in our marriage. The conversation that morning left a bitter taste, a precursor to the turmoil that was to unfold. Linda's determination to pursue this path with Alex, her boss, a man young enough to be our son, was a revelation that shook the very foundations of our marriage. The trust and understanding we had built over the years seemed to crumble in the face of her unwelcome revelation. The days following Linda's revelation were a blur of arguments, silent meals, and sleepless nights. The atmosphere in our home had become charged with an electric current of tension, each of us circling the other wary and wounded. It was during one of these long, restless nights that I came to a decision, a resolution born out of desperation and a deep, unyielding love for the woman I could not bear to lose. Sitting across from Linda at the dining table, a barrier of cold coffee and unspoken words between us, I cleared my throat, breaking the silence that had become our new normal. Linda, I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about what you think you need to do. I started, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. She looked up, her eyes searching mine, perhaps for a sign of the man she married, the one who promised to stand by her through better or worse. And, she prompted, her voice a mix of hope and caution. I can't pretend to understand this, to fully accept it. But I love you, Linda, more than my own pride. More than the life we've built together. If this is what you truly need, then I won't stand in your way. But, I paused, gathering the shards of my broken heart. There have to be rules. Boundaries. This can't just be an open door for you to leave us behind. Linda's expression softened, the first genuine emotion I'd seen in days. Mark, I never wanted to hurt you. I just felt so trapped, so lost. I thought this might be a way to find myself again. But I don't want to do this without your blessing, without some form of your understanding. Understanding might be too much to ask for right now, I admitted, the bitterness seeping through despite my best efforts to keep it at bay. But I'm willing to try. For us. However, I need to know that this doesn't mean the end for us. That there's a chance we can come back from this. Linda reached across the table, her hand hesitantly covering mine. I want that too, Mark. More than anything. I don't see this as an end, but as a detour. One I hope we can navigate together. So we set rules. Boundaries, like you said. Full transparency. No lies, no hiding. And the moment one of us feels like it's too much, we stop. We reassess. Together, she added, her voice firmer now, a testament to the gravity of our conversation. I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. And if, at any point, you find that this isn't what you really wanted, or if I can't handle it, we agree to seek help. Together. Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. Linda squeezed my hand, a silent vow passing between us. Together, she echoed, a promise that felt both comforting and ominous in the shadow of the bitter agreement we had forged. As we outlined the rules that would govern this new precarious phase of our marriage, a part of me mourned the simplicity of the love we once shared. Yet, another part clung to the hope that this sacrifice, this bending of our vows to near breaking, might ultimately save us. The bitter agreement was our lifeline, thrown into the turbulent waters of change, with the faint hope that it might lead us back to each other. The weeks that followed our bitter agreement were a testament to the complexity of human emotions, a period marked by a strange duality of closeness and distance in our marriage. Linda and I had established rules, boundaries that felt more like the outlines of a battlefield than the foundations of a relationship. It was during this time of uneasy truce that the doorbell rang one evening, a sound that once heralded friends or the mundane delivery of parcels. Now, it felt ominous, like the tolling of a bell at a funeral, announcing the arrival of a new chapter in our saga. I opened the door to find Alex standing there, his presence on our doorstep a physical manifestation of the abstract dread that had taken up residence in my heart. He was younger than I had imagined, with an easy confidence that bordered on arrogance. "Mark, right? I'm Alex. I think we have a lot to talk about." The audacity of his visit took me aback, but I composed myself, aware that any reaction on my part would set the tone for what was to come. "Come in, Alex. Linda mentioned you might want to discuss arrangements." As he stepped inside, Linda descended the stairs, her expression a complex tapestry of guilt, defiance, and a plea for understanding. "Mark, Alex thought it would be best to talk in person, to make sure everything is clear." The living room transformed into a surreal arena where the rules of our marriage were to be dissected by the very person who threatened its sanctity. "I appreciate you letting me into your home, Mark. I want you to know, I respect the boundaries you've set. This isn't something I take lightly," Alex began, his tone earnest, though it did little to soothe the sting of his presence. I nodded, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. "Then you understand that this isn't easy for any of us. It's not just about following rules. It's about respecting a relationship that has existed longer than you've been alive." Alex met my gaze, his youthful confidence wavering for a moment. "I do understand that, Mark. And I respect Linda, and what you both have. I'm not here to cause pain. I care about her. And she's made it clear how important these boundaries are." Linda interjected, her voice. The equilibrium we had attempted to establish was fragile at best, a delicate balance that required constant vigilance and an abundance of trust, a commodity that had become all too scarce in our household. It was a late Thursday evening when the illusion we had so painstakingly crafted shattered into a million pieces, the catalyst being nothing more than a forgotten phone on the kitchen counter. Linda had retreated to her studio, claiming a sudden burst of inspiration, leaving her phone behind. It buzzed incessantly, drawing my attention away from the book I was trying to lose myself in. A message flashed across the screen, visible enough to catch my eye, but not enough to read its contents. Driven by a mixture of curiosity and a gnawing suspicion, I found myself standing over the device, a silent debate raging within me. The phone buzzed again, and without another thought, I picked it up. The message was from Alex, its contents a stark departure from the boundaries we'd all agreed upon. My heart raced as I scrolled through their conversation, each message a hammer blow to the remnants of my trust. When Linda found me, phone in hand, her expression morphed from confusion to horror as she realized what I had discovered. "Mark, I can explain," she began, her voice trembling with the weight of her betrayal. "Explain?" I echoed, my voice hollow. "How do you explain this, Linda? We had an agreement, rules, boundaries. Was it all just a game to you?" No, it wasn't like that. It just happened. We didn't mean for it to go this far," Linda pleaded, her words doing little to quell the storm of emotions raging within me. "It just happened. Do you hear yourself, Linda? We talked about this. We set boundaries for this exact reason. And you just walked right over them like they meant nothing," I countered, the pain in my voice unmistakable. Linda reached out, a futile attempt to bridge the gap that had widened between us. "Mark, please, I'm sorry. I know I've messed up, but we can fix this. We can talk about it, go to counseling, anything." I stepped back, her touch suddenly foreign to me. "I don't know if we can. How do I trust anything you say now? How do I believe that you won't just let it happen again?" The conversation spiraled from there, a maelstrom of accusations, apologies, and pleas for understanding. The more we talked, the more evident it became that the foundation we had tried to rebuild was built on sand, vulnerable to the slightest wave. In the end, We sat in silence, the chasm between us wider than ever. The shattered illusion of our attempt at an unconventional solution lay in ruins around us, a painful reminder of the cost of our choices. "I don't know where we go from here, Linda," I admitted, the exhaustion evident in my voice. Linda wiped away a tear, her defeat palpable. "I don't know either, Mark. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right, if you'll let me." The path forward was uncertain, the trust that once bound us together now a casualty of our failed experiment. The shattered illusion of our agreement had revealed a painful truth. Some fractures are too deep to mend, and some rules, once broken, can never be restored. The days following the revelation were a blur of cold silences and whispered arguments, a stark contrast to the warmth that once filled our home. The air between us was charged with the electricity of unsaid words and unresolved tensions, each moment stretching into eternity. It was clear that the path we were on was unsustainable, leading us to a crossroads neither of us wanted to face. The decision, when it came, felt both sudden and inevitable. We found ourselves seated at the kitchen table, a barrier of wood and years of shared memories between us. Outside, the world was blanketed in a layer of frost, a mirror to the chill that had settled in our hearts. "Linda, we can't keep doing this," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. "We're hurting each other more than we're helping at this point." She nodded, her face a mask of resignation. "I know, Mark. I never wanted it to come to this. I thought we could manage, but I was wrong." The admission hung in the air between us, heavy with the weight of our failed attempts and broken promises. "So, what now?" I asked, the reality of our situation sinking in. Linda took a deep breath, her decision clear in her eyes before she spoke the words. "I think it's best if I leave. I need to figure out who I am outside of us, and you deserve the chance to heal without me here as a constant reminder of our mistakes." The finality of her words struck me with a force I hadn't anticipated. Despite everything, the thought of her leaving, of our life together ending in such a cold, unceremonious way, was a blow I wasn't prepared for. "Is there really no other way?" I whispered, clinging to a shred of hope that there might still be a path forward for us together. Linda reached across the table, her hand hovering over mine but not touching, a symbol of the distance that had grown between us. "I think we've tried every other way. This is the hardest decision I've ever had to make, but I believe it's the right one. For both of us." The conversation that followed was a mix of practicalities and whispered apologies, a negotiation of how to untangle the life we had built together. We talked about who would stay in the house, how we would divide our belongings, and the logistics of separation. A mundane end to a love story that had burned so brightly. As Linda packed her things, the reality of our situation became undeniable. Each item she placed in her suitcase was a memory, a piece of our shared life being compartmentalized and taken away. When the time came for her to leave, we stood at the doorway, the threshold of our home now a boundary between our past and our separate futures. "Goodbye, Mark. I'm so sorry for everything," Linda said, her voice breaking with the weight of her words. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. "Goodbye, Linda. Take care of yourself." And with that, she stepped out into the cold morning, the door closing behind her with a soft click that echoed like a gunshot in the silent house. The cold farewell was complete, leaving me alone with the ghosts of our past and the daunting task of rebuilding a future I had never envisioned. One without Linda by my side. The house felt cavernous and eerily silent in the wake of Linda's departure. Each room echoed with the remnants of our life together, the laughter and love now replaced by the palpable presence of betrayal. I wandered through the empty spaces, a ghost haunting the ruins of a life I could no longer claim as my own. It was during one of these aimless wanderings that I found myself standing in the doorway of Linda's studio. The scent of her paints and canvases still lingered in the air, a cruel reminder of the person who had once filled this space with creativity and life. As I looked around, my gaze fell upon a canvas that had been carelessly covered with a cloth. Driven by a mixture of curiosity and masochism, I pulled the cloth away, revealing a portrait of us in happier times. The pain that surged through me was unexpected in its intensity, a sharp stab of longing for something irretrievably lost. How did we get here? I murmured to the empty room, half expecting an answer from the shadows. The silence that greeted me was a stark reminder of my solitude. It was in this moment of vulnerability that my phone rang, breaking the oppressive silence. The screen displayed the name of an old friend, James, whose calls I had been avoiding in the chaos of the past weeks. Mark. Hey, it's James. I've been worried about you, man. How are you holding up? His voice was laced with concern, a lifeline thrown across the chasm of my isolation. I hesitated, the words lodged in my throat. I've been better, I finally admitted, the understatement of the year. It's been tough, James. Really tough. I can only imagine. I heard about Linda. I'm so sorry, Mark. Is there anything I can do? James's offer was genuine, a beacon of support in the storm that had become my life. I sighed, the weight of my situation momentarily lifted by the prospect of companionship. Actually, yeah. Could we meet up? I think I need to get out of this house, away from all these memories. Of course, man. Let's grab a beer and talk. You name the place and time, and I'll be there, James replied, his readiness to help providing a glimmer of hope in the darkness. The arrangement was made quickly, and as I prepared to leave the house, I took one last look at the portrait Linda had painted. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Linda, but maybe, just maybe, I can start to forgive myself. Stepping out into the world felt like emerging from a cocoon, the familiarity of the routine a stark contrast to the turmoil that had become my inner landscape. Meeting James provided a much-needed distraction, the simple act of talking about anything other than my crumbling marriage a balm to my wounded soul. Mark, it's okay to feel angry, to feel betrayed. What Linda did was not okay, and you're allowed to take the time you need to heal, James said, his words cutting through the fog of my denial. I nodded, the truth of his words resonating within me. I know. It's just hard, I keep thinking about the good times, wondering where it all went wrong. That's natural. But remember, this isn't the end for you. It's a chance to start over, to rebuild something even stronger from the ashes of what was lost, James encouraged, his optimism a stark contrast to the despair I had been feeling. The conversation with James was a turning point, the first step on a long road to healing. The echoes of betrayal still reverberated through the halls of my life, but for the first time since Linda's departure, I began to entertain the possibility of a future where those echoes faded into silence, overshadowed by the promise of new beginnings and the healing power of time.